Hello, and welcome back to our study of A Course in Miracles. I'm Danny Spendlove, and today we are in the last section of Chapter 3. Chapter 3, Section 7, Creating versus the Self-Image. Paragraph 1. Every system of thought must have a starting point. It begins with either a making or a creating, a difference we have already discussed. And yes, we have already discussed this. I'm going to make a short about the difference. So if I've already created it, you'll find it in the description of this video. If I haven't created it yet, then I haven't created it yet. So anyway, check there if you are like, oh wait, what's the difference between making and creating? Their resemblance lies in their power as foundations. Their difference lies in what rests upon them. Both are cornerstones for systems of belief by which one lives. It is a mistake to believe that a thought system based on lies is weak. I'm going to read that again. It is a mistake to believe that a thought system based on lies is weak. Nothing made by a child of God is without power. It is essential to realize this because otherwise you will be unable to escape from the prison you have made. That is powerful. Nothing made by a child of God is without power, even if it's based on lies. Anything we believe in is powerful, for good or for bad. Paragraph 2. You cannot resolve the authority problem. And if you recall, we talked about the authority problem in the previous section. So if you don't remember, go back and listen to that one. But as a quick overview, the authority problem is believing that we can create ourselves and not believing that God is our true author. So you cannot resolve the authority problem by depreciating the power of your mind. To do so is to deceive yourself, and this will hurt you because you really understand the strength of the mind. So we actually know our own strength, although we choose not to believe it. You also realize that you cannot weaken it any more than you can weaken God. The quote unquote devil is a frightening concept because he seems to be extremely powerful and extremely active. He is perceived as a force in combat with God, battling him for possession of his creations. The devil deceives by lies and builds kingdoms in which everything is in direct opposition to God. Yet he attracts men rather than repels them, and they are willing to, quote unquote, sell him their souls in return for gifts of no real worth. This makes absolutely no sense. Paragraph 3. We have discussed the fall or separation before, but its meaning must be clearly understood. The separation is a system of thought real enough in time, though not in eternity. So the separation seems to be very real. Like we definitely seem to be separated from God. So it's real enough in time, but it's not in eternity. It is not a part of eternity. All beliefs are real to the believer. The fruit of only one tree was forbidden in the symbolic garden, but God could not have forbidden it, or it could not have been eaten. If God had actually forbidden that something be eaten, it wouldn't be possible to eat it. When God forbids something, it is done. He wills it, it is done. So I thought that was interesting. It could not have been eaten. If God knows his children, and I assure you that he does, would he have put them in a position where their own destruction was possible? The forbidden tree was named the tree of knowledge. Yet God created knowledge and gave it freely to his creations. The symbolism here has been given many interpretations, but you may be sure that any interpretation that sees either God or his creations as capable of destroying their own purpose is an error. It is just not even possible for us to destroy our purpose. So interpret those symbols however you like, as long as you don't actually believe that we can destroy our own purpose. Eating of the fruit of the tree of knowledge is a symbolic expression for usurping the ability for self-creating. So God is the only one with the ability to create us, who he already created us, so that's done. But eating of the fruit of the tree of knowledge, this forbidden fruit, is symbolic for usurping the ability for self-creating. That's when we believed that we could create ourselves. This is the only sense in which God and his creations are not co-creators, and everything else we create together, except in this belief that we can create ourselves. The belief that they are is implicit in the self-concept, and that's in quotes, self-concept, or the tendency of the self to make an image of itself. Images are perceived, not known. Knowledge cannot deceive, but perception can. You can perceive yourself as self-creating, but you cannot do more than believe it. You cannot make it true. And as I said before, when you finally perceive correctly, you can only be glad that you cannot. Be glad that you cannot make it true, that you can create yourself. Until then, however, the belief that you can is the foundation stone in your thought system, and all your defenses are used to attack ideas that might bring it to light. So the foundation of our whole thought system is this idea that we can create ourselves. And you may be thinking, oh, I know that God created me. Like it says in the Bible that God created us. Of course I didn't create myself. But then why do you feel like you have to follow certain rules or certain prescriptions in order to get back to God? I think what this is saying is we believe that now that we're here in this life, that somehow our choices are creating who we are going to be moving forward. And so if we don't make the right choices, we might end up being cast out and never being able to return to God again. That somehow we are changing our spirits, that thing, that inner altar that God made as an extension of himself, that somehow we can defile it and deform it into a place and get it to a place where God looks upon us and says, you are unworthy to be in my presence. That's the creation we think that we have. Because I think most of us know that like God created us, but then we believe we can somehow change what he made and make it dirty and filthy, even though he made it perfect. So I hope that that makes sense. So this belief that we can create ourselves is the foundation stone in our thought system. And all your defenses are used to attack ideas that might bring it to light. And how true is that? Then when we start to believe that we're perfect, if that thought even crosses our mind, if we were to say that out loud to other people, like, hey, I'm perfect. How many people would attack us and we attack ourselves and be like, you are arrogant. You need to be humble. You need to be aware of all your weaknesses and you need to be trying to overcome them and like focusing on the weakness. Oh my gosh. Okay, I had to go find it. Chapter 2, Section 7, paragraph 5. What you believe is true for you. In this sense, the separation has occurred, and to deny it is merely to use denial inappropriately. However, to concentrate on error is only a further error. To concentrate on error is only a further error. So it's okay to recognize like, oh, I acted without love. That's an error. That's not how I'm meant to be. But to beat ourselves down and to tell ourselves that we're not good enough and we're unworthy and such lowly creatures and we've got to focus on mastering our weaknesses. Not necessarily. Focusing on the error is only a further error. So focusing on our true authorship and our perfection and our source, which is love, and trying to act with love. Focus on acting with love. Don't focus on how lowly you think you are, because technically you're not. Remember, anything made by a child of God is powerful, even if it's built on lies. So let's try and focus on the truth, which is We are a miracle. We are an expression of love. And our only natural tendency is to express more love. I'm getting all wound up about this. Again, I didn't even have this thought until I started talking to this camera, and now all of a sudden, like things are connecting. Anyway, calm myself down. So all your defenses are used to attack ideas that might bring this to light. So bring to light that you don't actually believe God created you and you think that you're creating yourself. All our defenses are used to prevent us from coming to that realization, which is crazy, right? That we're trying to defend ourselves against truth. And we do that by making ourselves feel like we're being arrogant if we believe that we're a perfect creation of God. It says that in a later chapter. So just so you know, I'm not pulling that out of thin air, but I'm going to try not to jump ahead. Okay. You still believe you are an image of your own making. Your mind is split with the Holy Spirit on this point, and there is no resolution while you believe the one thing that is literally inconceivable. That is why you cannot create and are filled with fear about what you make. So remember, there's a difference between creation and making. So you cannot create right now because your thought system is based on this one idea that is completely inconceivable, which is that you're creating yourself and God didn't create you. Or God didn't create you eternally perfect. Like he created you, but not eternally perfect. You can somehow mess up what he made. That is why you cannot create and are filled with fear about what you make. Because everything we're making now comes from a place of lack and emptiness. Paragraph 5. The mind can make the belief in separation very real and very fearful. And this belief is the devil. I'm going to say this again. The mind can make the belief in separation very real and very fearful. And this belief, the belief in separation, is the devil. And the devil is in quotes again. And I just want to say here, I know how I was raised. There was specifically a scripture that basically said anyone who says that the devil isn't real is basically of the devil, because the devil doesn't want you to believe that he's real, and just wants you to slip and slide down the slippery slope, right? And be like, oh, the devil's not real, everything I do is fine, and leads you down, right? And so this one is an interesting one to look at for those who may have been raised similarly. That our minds are so powerful, right? Even the things that aren't true, if our minds made it, it is powerful. And there was another, oh dear, where was that one? Okay, yes, chapter 2, section 9. Few appreciate the real power of the mind, and no one remains fully aware of it all the time. However, if you hope to spare yourself from fear, there are some things you must realize and realize fully. The mind is very powerful and never loses its creative force. It never sleeps. Every instant it is creating. It is hard to recognize that thought and belief combine into a power surge that can literally move mountains. There are no idle thoughts. All thinking produces form at some level. And then it had said earlier in this section too, was talking about it is a mistake to believe that a thought system based on lies is weak. Nothing made by a child of God is without power. So when this is saying the mind can make the belief in separation very real and very fearful, and this belief is the devil, it's basically saying we are making the devil. Each of us individually has created this idea of separation, because remember again that it said when it was talking about the devil in paragraph 2, the devil is a frightening concept because he seems to be extremely powerful and extremely active. He is perceived as a force in combat with God, battling him for possession of his creations. The devil deceives by lies and builds kingdoms in which everything is in direct opposition to God. Yet he attracts men rather than repels them, and they are willing to sell him their souls in return for gifts of no real worth. This makes absolutely no sense. So it is our own minds that have created the devil. And I know there are people who have seen devils. But again, remember, images are perceived. Images aren't knowledge. They are symbols. Images are symbols of something. So our mind can create symbols that we call the devil. And it's really our own split mind saying the separation is so real and there's something keeping something outside of me. We're projecting our belief that we are separated. We're projecting it outside of us and saying, this being, this image is keeping me from God. When really it's just ourselves keeping us from God. But we like to have something else to blame because we don't want to admit that we are the only thing that can keep us separated or keep us believing that we're separated. So just chew on that and see where it lands. So I'm just going to read that first line again. I know I've already read it a couple times. The mind can make the belief in separation very real and very fearful, and this belief is the devil. It is powerful, active, destructive, and clearly in opposition to God because it literally denies his fatherhood. Look at your life and see what the devil has made, but realize that this making will surely dissolve in the light of truth because it's not creation, it's made. See what the devil has made, and this making will dissolve because it's not eternal. It's all image and perception. So realize that this making will surely dissolve in the light of truth because its foundation is a lie. Your creation by God is the only foundation that cannot be shaken because the light is in it. Your starting point is truth, and you must return to your beginning. And beginning is with a capital B. So your starting point, your beginning, is truth, and you must return to your beginning. Much has been seen since then, but nothing has really happened. Much has been seen, which again is a perception, but nothing has really happened. Yourself, and self is with a capital S, yourself is still in peace, even though your mind is in conflict. Your spirit is untouchable. It's still in peace. It's still not separated from God. It is still with God. It's our mind that is going through this nightmare. Yourself is still in peace, even though your mind is in conflict. You have not yet gone back far enough, and that is why you become so fearful. So we're going back to the beginning, right? As you approach the beginning, again with a capital B, as you approach the beginning, you feel the fear of the destruction of your thought system upon you, as if it were the fear of death. There is no death, but there is a belief in death. So as we go back, get closer to remembering our beginning, which is truth, we actually get more fearful because we can start to sense the death of our thought system. This thought system that's based on a lie. As we get closer and closer to that, it actually feels like death. Like, oh wait, this is going against everything I've ever believed. This is not everything, because I believed in love. I believe in a good, merciful God. There are lots of things I believed. But all the guilt and the fear that I was trying to use to get myself closer to God, as I'm realizing I have to undo that to actually get closer to God, there for sure have been times where I'm like, am I sure this is the right thing? Like, what if I finally embrace my perfection and all of these things, and then I find out, oh, nope, you were wrong. You really should have been afraid. You really should have, all of those things. Like, you start to have these conflicting thoughts. And am I sure I'm doing the right thing? Am I sure that I shouldn't judge? Like, what if I give up judgment and then I do all sorts of awful things because I was trying not to judge and I really should have been judging? You start getting all of this battle over your mind. It really can be interesting. I'll just put it that way. It can be interesting. So, so this is really curious. As you approach the beginning, you feel the fear of the destruction of your thought system because you're getting closer to light and truth and knowledge. And once you reach those, all the perception and all the judgment it'll be immediately suspended. It will be the end. Everything you make that final last judgment, if you remember from the last section of chapter 2, so section 8, the meaning of the last judgment is looking on everything you have made and only keeping what was truly created. And once you stop believing in your miscreations, they cease to exist. So they are basically fighting for their lives because they know once you get to truth and light, they'll just cease to exist. And so the ego is basically fighting to stay in existence. But that doesn't mean that it's true or that it's real. But it can still fight like it's real and create all sorts of visions of the devil trying to keep you from connecting with God. Okay, paragraph 6. The branch that bears no fruit will be cut off and will wither away. Be glad. The light will shine from the true foundation of life, and your own thought system will stand corrected. It cannot stand otherwise. You who fear salvation are choosing death. Life and death, light and darkness, knowledge and perception are irreconcilable. To believe that they can be reconciled is to believe that God and his Son cannot. If you think that somehow you can reconcile perception and knowledge, that somehow you can have both of them, you're basically saying that God and his Son cannot be reconciled. Because the only way we can get back to God is by realizing that all of this stuff that we messed up, all the bad that we did, all of the poor judgments that we made, there's no way to undo them except by the slaughter of one of God's children, which goes completely against God as well. So again, like there's no way to reconcile these things without basically saying we can't reconcile God and his Son, without sacrificing, without suffering, without someone paying a terrible price, and that's not how it is. Only the oneness of knowledge is free of conflict. Your kingdom, and that's a capital K, so your capital K kingdom is not of this world because it was given you from beyond this world. Only in this world is the idea of an authority problem meaningful. The world is not left by death, but by truth. You don't leave this world by death. You leave it by accepting truth. And truth can be known by all those for whom the kingdom was created and for whom it waits. Surprise! It's Danny on a different day. After I recorded the last video, I started to have this little thought come into my mind with one of these last lines that hadn't come to my mind when I originally recorded the video. And I just didn't want to take the time to try and make myself look exactly like I looked that day and pretend like it was the same day. So this last line begins with, "The world is not left by death, but by truth." And I just got thinking about, because I have a close friend who had a very powerful or vivid experience with what she called evil spirits, where she saw them coming at her. And it felt like more than just a dream. It had quite an impact on her. And so It is possible that they were just symbols appearing, images appearing as evil spirits that symbolize something else. Um, and I wonder, and I don't know, and I'm not pretending like I know, I don't have knowledge. This is all my perception, right? But I wonder if even after death, even when our spirits leave these mortal bodies, that does not release us from this world of thinking that we're separated, thinking that there is lack. And so there may be people who have died, but their mind still believes in separation and doesn't feel worthy to return to God. And so maybe they do wander the earth and scare little mortals like us and make us afraid and seem very sad or angry or things like that because they do think that they're alone and haven't had time yet. Eventually, according to A Course in Miracles, eventually all of us will return to God. And none of us can be truly happy or in heaven until all of us are. So eventually, everyone will learn or will come to remember, return to their beginning. But I thought it was interesting. I also thought about how it said that the separation happened over millions of years and that undoing the separation would take a similarly long time, if not longer, and that miracles can make that time shorter. So I think it potentially could maybe take shorter, or maybe it's already been millions of years. And so we've already passed the point of there being any possibility of it taking a shorter time. But it could take way, way longer. And I wonder if that's because it just took a moment for us to decide to come in this state and believe that we were separated. But it may take more than just one lifetime. It may take more than just dying and then going, oh, haha, none of that was real. Maybe this experience can be so intensely real for us. Like this dream is such a deep dream that even when our bodies die, there's a part of our mind that still believes it's separated, and it will take a long time to get us to believe otherwise. And in my faith, we believe that there is a time after death before the final judgment, which was nothing like how A Course in Miracles describes the final judgment, but what we believed would be the final judgment. And that time was for teaching those who didn't know about Christ in this life, because how many people have lived and died on this earth knowing absolutely nothing about a man named Jesus Christ. So being Christian, we believed everyone had to accept Christ, but also believed that there was a time after death where people would be taught and have the opportunity to accept Christ if they wanted or reject him, either way. And so maybe there is some truth to that belief that after this life there will be some time to remember that they aren't actually separated. So, an interesting thought. I don't know if there's any truth to that. A Course in Miracles that I remember does not explicitly say if that is true or not. But I feel like this line, that the world is not left by death, but by truth, would suggest that dying isn't enough, that you have to accept the truth in order to truly leave this world. And that is the end of this section and the end of this chapter. And I'm so excited to see you in the next chapter, which is The Illusions of Ego. Get ready for a fun time. And until then, please comment. I would love to hear any ahas that you had. And until then, we'll see you next time.